Thanks for tuning in to the Proline Handicapping Show on the web. Coming up, Southern Illinois at Butler, Austin Peay versus Akron, Old Dominion at Toledo, and the Ohio Bobcats at New Mexico State. But first, let's hear from our Proline panelists.
Hi, everyone. It's the Bracket Buster edition of Proline. I'm Dave Koken, along with Scott Spreitzer to my left, Glenn McGrew to my right, and we're going to embark on talking about a bunch of Bracket Buster games in today's show. Also, we will be looking at the NBA All-Stars who have descended upon Las Vegas for what is an absolutely huge weekend of activity, and the explosion of the Bracket Busters as a whole. Marty Schottenheimer out in San Diego as personality clash gets to be too much. And, of course, there's also Rotoplay.com. And Rotoplay is embarking on a brand-new frenzy of their own, 2-week frenzies. This is the most unique website for fantasy players because they have a brand-new contest every 2 weeks. And so coming out of the All-Star break in the NBA, there's going to be a brand-new contest. You can go head-to-head. You can go against random guys. There's all kinds of things you can do in this. And the bottom line is you can win money. So make sure and check out Rotoplay.com if you're into fantasy basketball, baseball, football, golf, whatever. They've got something for you there, and you're going to find it a lot of fun. Well, guys, Marty Schottenheimer not finding this week to be a lot of fun. 14-2, the loss in the playoffs, but this... You almost could see this coming. It's not exactly a secret that Marty Schottenheimer and A.J. Smith were completely at odds. I don't think anybody realized just how bad it was. They weren't even speaking to each other.
Yeah, we had heard you hear some talk on the different sports shows and things like that, that maybe Schottenheimer is on the fringe of getting let go, but it still shocked me. It still surprised me because it came down to what they said was the fact that he wanted to bring in some bodies as far as assistants were concerned that the front office didn't want. And they're not seeing eye to eye in the first place. So that's the bottom line. But it did surprise me that they just said Marty's out, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not his fault. He lost two extraordinarily talented coordinators that got head coaching jobs, and you can't blame Schott. But, I mean, what right does he have? I mean, the guy's only won 200 games in his NFL career, lost 126. That happens to be the best record, by the way, all-time best record of any coach not making the Super Bowl. What right do you think he has to decide which one of his coaches? It's all a matter of opinion. I mean, you've got a general manager, the president, Spanos. He just decided to back the GM,
go with somebody.
One or the other. And but you know what? In the long run, I think it was a mistake. But I mean,
I think it was a mistake for them too.
You can't fire A.J. Smith either.
Right.
General manager outranks the coach.
Right. Yeah.
It's pecking order. And A.J. Smith's done a tremendous job as the GM. I mean, he's
other than realizing that Drew Brees was damaged goods and get rid of him so we could get something for him.
Yeah, well, but I mean, you talk about he had Philip.
We knew he had Rivers.
See, but here's the thing about that. I mean, and obviously hindsight, blah blah blah. But anyway, the bottom line was, if Drew Brees was their quarterback, you would think they probably would have gone a little bit farther in the playoffs this year because Rivers wasn't too hot. But if I'm Marty Schottenheimer and this is what I have to deal with. As far as I've just gone 14-2 for you, you've had the best run you've ever had. Since Don Coryell was there, as far as the last few years, a multi-season run, and now you're going to tell me who I should and who I shouldn't hire for me to run my system. I think it's better for him too. You got to get out of there.
One little thing, maybe you know more about this, Dave or Scott. I know that he did turn down. They gave him a 1-year extension, offer him $4.5 million. But they also put in a little thing saying that the club could buy him out for $1 million. Maybe he just wasn't satisfied, Schottenheimer, with a 1-year extension.
No,
I don't know.
Think
but
I think
you think that was?
I think we're looking for a reason to get him out of there because you can't. They got lucky this year in this sense. When you have an organization that's this divided, chances are it's not going to perform well. And they managed to. The odd thing here is the irony of it is that had this happened a little bit sooner, Wade Phillips probably ends up staying in San Diego, and Marty very well may have ended up with the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, do you think that was maybe planned out too, just to spite Marty, make sure he didn't have time to find a job?
No, I don't think so, because Wade Phillips was still the defensive coordinator in San Diego, and if Wade Phillips had stayed,
then why not?
I don't think there would have been any change made. But Wade Phillips was the one who ultimately got the job in Dallas. I actually got that one right, folks. I called that one. I did not think they'd go North Turner because they hired Garrett as an offensive coordinator, and to me it wouldn't have made much sense to bring in somebody who's going to bring in you're going to have an almost automatic conflict.
I thought that would have been a huge mistake if North Turner would have been hired by the Cowboys. I mean, he does a great job with working with quarterbacks. That's obvious. But, boy, if he would have been brought in as head coach, that team would have been stuck in mediocrity for a long time.
Now, we don't know who the San Diego coach is, as we're doing this. So it's possible that
Mike Riley. No, I'm kidding.
it's possible that the coach will have been named by the time this is actually airing on our website.
You mean maybe a college coach from a high-profile school?
Well, I
on
actually,
the West Coast
I think
in the
that,
Pac-10?
why not? Wouldn't this be?
They're going on probation any time in the next 6 months, so he might as well take a
Plus
leave.
the fact, if you're going to take one of these jobs, you get to stay in Southern California. You get a team that's at least got a chance.
Right.
Certainly, in fact, the favorite. How about
least
that?
of a
To get to the
chance,
Super Bowl. I mean, wouldn't this be the job that Carroll would jump at?
Since there's no pro team in Los Angeles, I think this is probably his best opportunity to jump to that next level, going to San Diego, than any other opportunity that's been thrown at him, whether it be Miami or whatever, because of, like you just said, they've got the team that can get him what he wants, which would be an NFL championship. So this would be the place to go. Plus, like I just said, USC is
we
in
haven't
so
said
much
who
trouble
that
right
is.
now.
We're sitting here talking about it.
Dave
Oh, you
mentioned it,
did?
Pete Carroll.
Okay, good.
But the USC is under the microscope like never before. And, I mean, it's conjecture on my part, but I wouldn't obviously be surprised to see them under some kind of pretty serious probation within the next 6 to 8 months from the way it sounds. So it's a great opportunity for Pete Carroll to go in to a winning situation. That's what he likes.
Well,
great opportunity, except, boy, I tell you what, I think most of these guys realize it now. I mean, the best opportunity is a solid job at a college university.
But I'll tell you why I disagree with that. You can always go right back.
No,
Well, Pete Carroll get a job like that in millions.
You take the monster money in the pros.
And then go back.
And then go back.
And he'll get a high-profile opportunity if he does go back, if he did take this job and goes back.
So you think if he went in the NFL, failed miserably, you think somebody might hire him back?
He's not going to go to a place like Washington, obviously. He's going to.
Now you just watch it. We're not going to get started with this now.
How much money do you think Nick Saban get?
Yeah.
That's right.
By the way, nice remarks that he made about Louisianans, some Louisianans, by the way, and that ought to help with recruiting in the state of Louisiana.
Nick is. I think Nick may have. He may have passed Terrell Owens on the "I'm going to say something really stupid."
That was really stupid.
Meter. Nick Saban, you're a new leader in the clubhouse. The Bracket Busters are back again, back and bigger and better than ever, I guess. This started off a few years ago, something that made some NCAA college basketball traditionalists just cringe. They didn't like the idea of what was clearly a made-for-TV event. What were there, about a half a dozen games or something like that? It was kind of fun.
It was basically the Missouri Valley against the Horizon League.
Everybody wants to get involved in Bracket Buster now. It's a monster success. It's not just made for TV anymore because the vast majority of these games aren't on TV. It's a chance to, I think, have something to sell to recruits because there is some excitement here and just bragging rights among these mid-tier conferences as well. It's a hell of an event. And look at how many. I didn't even count the number of games this week, but it's a ton.
It's a lot.
They even have to expand it to 3 days.
Right.
It starts on Friday, then you got everything on Saturday, and a couple more on Sunday.
And you can understand why the traditionalists didn't like it at first. I mean, let's face it. Well, I know, but I mean, usually you'll see maybe 2, 3, 4 games this past month where a school like UCLA will go all the way across the country, leave Pac-10 action right in the midst of the battles, go out and play a West Virginia, something like that. And of course, a lot of people, boy, you shouldn't pull away a team during major conference play. And of course, this isn't just one, but now we're, like you said, I think there's like a 25 games this weekend.
Oh, there's way more.
Is it more than that?
Yeah.
30? Yeah,
Probably
something.
3 dozen. I mean,
Yeah, something like that. So you can understand where people thought, oh, but you're right. Boy, the interest is tremendous, too.
And we're going to have some really good games to talk about today, by the way, on the Bracket Busters. Southern Illinois, Butler, Austin, Peay, Akron, Old Dominion, Toledo, and even a Sunday game between Ohio and New Mexico State. And, of course, on Sunday, this town will finally have the, I guess, the least significant event of the entire weekend, the actual All-Star game. It's everything else that's going on in town this week that's where the action is. I mean, you get this huge array of parties where you can buy tickets for who knows how much money and stand in line and gawk, I guess. I don't know. I have no interest in this stuff. But the other stuff, the peripheral stuff for the fans is pretty exciting. The All-Star Jam, the three-point competition, the slam dunk competition, where actually the judges are the guys you wish were doing the dunking because it's like Hall of Fame array of judges, and the actual slam dunkers are guys who, but it's just a monster event in Las Vegas, and it should be a lot of fun here.
It isn't. You know what? I'm glad you brought it up too, because when I looked at the a week ago when I looked at the final tabulations of the voting, and for years I've always, I mean, we've all, I think, criticized at one time or another baseball fans and their, I don't want to use the word idiotic, but I guess I just did, the way they determine who should be the starters. And, of course, they have the right because they're the ones that want to see these players.
That's right, for the fans.
But, I mean, let's face it, the other day it was announced that Steve Nash wouldn't play in the game. And it didn't even dawn on me until it said it. It said, of course, he was voted by the coaches as one of the backups. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't care if you have Kobe Bryant and who was the other guy in that? And McGrady. I don't care how good those two guys are. If I'm an all-star voter and I think I know anything about the NBA, I think Steve, well, I understand it doesn't mean anything, but it's just, again, just another example you talk about doesn't make sense because if Steve Nash isn't...
I think if the vote were restricted to fans in this country, Nash probably would have won one of the bids. But the fact is it's not. And Asia, there's a tremendous amount of voting because of Yao Ming, and they vote for his teammate.
Well, just
Tracy
you know who the most.
But that just gets back to the whole problem with the NBA, and I think
I don't think
I've
that's
talked about
the
this.
most popular jersey
The
is?
NBA,
Seriously, you know what the most popular jersey is in China? There's a couple of people in China. The most popular selling jersey, or the most wanted jersey in China is Tracy McGrady, even over Yao Ming.
Really?
I mean, so you've got to factor in. You know, you go to Germany, you might not get Steve Nash. You know what I'm saying on the ballot. You know, you're going to get a bunch of Dirk Nowitzki votes, obviously. So it depends on where you go, and these votes are taken from, like as Dave just said, all over the world. Now, I don't care.
Neither do I.
I don't care either.
So, I think it should be for the fans. I love the baseball All-Star game because I'm all about the fans.
The only thing I'd like to see changed in the baseball All-Star game is expand the rosters so that you don't have to squeeze out one player from every team and maybe squeeze somebody out of being in the All-Star team. You know,
and of course, just a couple of years ago when they ran out of players in the All-Star game, another reason why your thoughts make perfect sense.
Well, yeah.
Why add
Plus,
a few
there
more
happens to be more teams now.
Well, that's right.
Well, I hate the thing about baseball, obviously, where they made that stupid change where the winner of the All-Star game is the host of the World Series, which is absolutely ludicrous. But Steve Nash, I don't get the big deal. What's the big deal anyway? Because look how well Phoenix is playing without him.
Yeah.
I mean, what are they averaging? 10 or 15 more points a game and playing much better on the defensive end. And
yeah, you think his MVP nomination got a little bit stronger?
You know what? The big problem though is, I mean, with the NBA, the thing I don't like about the NBA is over the years we've lost shooters because kids don't practice shooting the ball anymore. Distributing, all they care about is going to the hoop and slamming.
Well, that's
it
why
home.
it's been so great, this influx of
But
European,
the
influx of European players.
But
it's not a matter of caring about it. It's the
it is.
No.
Absolutely is.
No, it's not. It's not all about that. That's certainly a contributing factor. But it's also the fact that it doesn't make any sense to shoot a 15-foot jump shot in high school or college basketball. In fact, that's a bad shot. It's a bad shot. So kids don't work on that. AAU coaches don't work on that. High school coaches don't work on that, and neither do college coaches.
That's why our kids lose when they go overseas all the time.
Exactly.
If you're not slam dunking the ball, the second best percentage shot in college basketball is a three-point shot because you get 3 points for it. Even if you only hit 35% from three-point land, it's worth more than a much bigger percentage of two-point shots. 15-foot shot. Look, you want to get the fundamentals back in the game. Get rid of the ridiculous short three-point shot in college basketball. Rick Barry,
the pros.
Rick Barry's got the best idea on this, which is at the high school level you can leave it where it is. At the college level you move it back to the international line.
That's what I would go for.
And then in the NBA you leave it where it is. In the NBA, it makes perfect sense. But of course, Rick Barry says a lot of things that make perfect sense.
But the NBA doesn't like it.
No, the NBA doesn't like
Basketball doesn't like it.
Not.
So naturally, nobody does anything about it.
But you know what? The one thing
Clearly
that's
the
helped
best
out
idea.
with outside shooting has been the influx of European players because they will, I don't care if they're 8 feet tall, they will stand outside and pop threes. So that's helped out a little bit at the NBA level. But, you know, I mean, our kids go over and get their butts kicked in now every time they go overseas in these tournaments from the time they're 14 until, 18, 19 years old because they're all about going to the hole and dunking the basketball or standing outside and firing up 30-footers. And
But it's not the kid's fault because
I'm not saying it's the kid's fault. It's taught.
That's what they're coached to do.
And it's what they see and it's what
Coached
they're
to
taught.
do, but you can still take time out and shoot 300 jumpers.
But it takes a very strong-willed
it
kid,
does.
and there's
It
not
does,
a lot of
That's
that.
really unusual. I mean, that's
It takes an individual,
Yeah.
and there's not too many individuals.
that's why LeBron James or somebody of that caliber only comes along once every few years because
He does his
you
thing.
basically that's your life. LeBron James must have spent how many hours a day doing different basketball-related things?
Sure.
99.9% of the kids aren't going to do that, and that's not a knock on the kids. LeBron was just one of those driven individuals who had this goal. I can't conceive of having a goal that I'm that single-minded toward, no matter what it is.
You should see
I
me
could
on
never
Fridays
do anything
preparing
like
for
that.
Saturday basketball cards.
I thought you said we're going out Saturday nights. I was going to say,
Anyway,
that's that. All right. All right, we don't have anything else to talk about except games. We got a lot of games to talk about. So we'll take a little break, and we'll come back and we'll look at the first of our bracket buster matchups. And boy, this is a real good one between two high-end teams. Southern Illinois, they're on fire right now, and Butler's had a great season out of the horizon. We'll talk about those two teams when we come back.
Up next, Southern Illinois takes on Butler. But first, let's hear from Primetime's Glenn McGrew, who nailed his Missouri Valley Conference Game of the Year last Saturday and has a free personal service offer going this week, including his Bracket Buster Game of the Year.
as Dave said a moment ago, we got some bracket busters for you coming up in just a second, 4 of them as a matter of fact. But first, I just want to mention again, we've talked about this all season long. It's been a spectacular hoops campaign for primetime clients. Of course, from week 1, we've been tremendous in the NBA. It's just been one win after another. College hoops the last 3 weeks have been phenomenal. Another winning Proline offer last week. Of course, I had my Missouri Valley Conference Game of the Year win. Bradley really crushed Drake 100-85, and then in the evening we capped off a great day, my pro game of the month with Toronto plus the points against the Detroit Pistons. 2 hot teams. We went with the Raptors, and they got the money for you. I tell you, this week, which we're going to call it a personal service day, you're going to get all, and I mean all of my hard court plays in both pro and college basketball, and most importantly, that's going to include my Bracket Buster Game of the Year. It's all free. 1-800-531-7069. 1-800-531-7069. One whole day of incredible winning hoops at Primetime Sports. You be sure and call. Now, our first Bracket Buster game, you said it's a good one, too, isn't it, Dave?
Southern Illinois and Butler.
Wow.
2 teams that could be playing deep into the big dance. I mean, Butler's very, very good. And Southern Illinois, I mean, they physical, and they play a style that's really tough to figure out because I got to tell you, if they're not blowing whistles, they're going to just wear you down over the course of 40 minutes. They are just a grinded out.
They could beat anybody in the tournament. Anybody they face in the tournament, they could beat them in the right situation.
Yeah.
Oh, you better believe that.
I did the right officiating.
I think you all remember in the beginning of the year, Butler ran off a series of big non-conference wins. I was stunned. I didn't realize how many. Gonzaga, Notre Dame, Indiana, Tennessee, Purdue, and I say Purdue and I mean it seriously because that's a pretty good ball club. I mean, those were all wins, all of them on neutral sites or on the road, one or the other. And to beat all of those teams.
Well, but what I'm saying, though, is I think Southern Illinois is a team that could knock off anybody.
Either one of them.
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely,
either one.
absolutely.
I mean, Southern Illinois changes and disrupts offensive passing lanes, not just the shots, but they get in the passing lanes like you wouldn't believe. And you're going to see that in this game against Butler if SIU brings their A game psychologically because
That's
they're
that's
going
always
on the
a
road
question in these games,
and that's
It
the
is.
toughest part of it that you've got to figure out in this contest. If you watch SIU last weekend against Creighton, now the Blue Jays and Southern Illinois are the marquee teams of the Missouri Valley over the past 10 years, no doubt about it. The bottom line is I think it's now 8 in a row they've beaten Creighton. They are not power rating wise better than Creighton. They're about even. And even in that game at Carbondale in that awesome, noisy, cozy gym, they're down 6-7 points, and Creighton looked in complete control with about 6 minutes, 7 minutes tops to go in that basketball game. But Southern Illinois is so mentally tough, and it's funny because they play a lot of 50-46 type of basketball games. It's not because they slow it down on the offensive end and they don't have this team is filled with athlete after athlete after athlete, but they have a coaching staff that drills it into their head to get it done on the defensive end. And I've never seen, at least in the last 15 years, a team that disrupts passing lanes as much as this team does and follows their assignments on the defensive end like they do.
Now, Butler has the personnel to shred that a little bit.
The guards, the two guards
And if they're
especially.
blowing the whistles, it really favors Butler because they make their foul shots. They've got the #1 foul shooter in the country. I also think that this is a more important game to Butler from seeding purposes. Obviously, both teams are going to be in the NCAA tournament, but SIU is in the middle of this grinded out race for the top spot in the Missouri Valley Conference. Butler's in their own race with Wright State, is playing great ball in the Horizon. But the thing is, Butler's got a chance for like a 4 or a 5 seed. It's a very important game for them. They need to show something here. I'm not giving out a selection on this game here on the show on the side because right at this moment I don't have one.
Yeah.
But as far as the totals concerned, I got to tell you something. When you haven't even seen Southern Illinois' system, it's got to be disruptive. Sure. So I would think that this is a game where you may not see 100 points scored.
I think this is a great game to just sit down and watch.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Butler ends up winning this game by 3 or 4 points. I don't have a selection on the game, but I'm going to tell you what, you got Graves and Green. You mentioned they've got the guys who can disrupt what SIU does defensively if Butler's on their game. Graves and Green are outstanding perimeter guys. Yeah. And then you've got outstanding perimeter defense by SIU. This is going to be a game where hopefully both teams bring it. Because if they do, it's going to be one of the best games we can see all season.
I actually think this is from an interest standpoint to me, this is the game that I'm
the best of all the bracket busters.
I have to watch this game.
And I can understand why you say you won't have a selection because I think the line's going to come somewhere between 3.5, 4.5, something like that. I'll tell you, you mentioned maybe the key thing is that over the years the Missouri Valley Conference has risen to the occasion because they've been perceived as the underdog when they know they've got talent and they want to prove something. But in this spot here, I think Butler's the team out of a conference that doesn't maybe get quite as much respect. So that gives them a little bit of an advantage.
The funny thing is, the Missouri Valley Conference is the conference that everybody wants to knock off in bracket busters now.
Right.
Because they've kind of gotten past that mid-major stigma. And they're considered a big-time conference now. And these teams get a lot of attention.
Despite the fact that Billy Packer made his, his idiotic remarks, despite the fact that Steve Lavin omits the Missouri Valley Conference every time he talks about his top 7 or 8 conferences in basketball, a little bit too much bro cream, I think, there for Steve. But the bottom line is this team is getting enough attention now. And I was going to mention that, and I'm glad you did, where they are now the big brother of the mid-majors, and everybody's trying to knock off Big Brother, and that's what you're going to. And plus, as you mentioned, this is a huge game for Butler after losing last weekend to Wright State.
Exactly.
That made this game of utmost importance to the Bulldogs.
And shame on the Mountain West for not getting involved in this.
Oh, I know.
What are they thinking about? Mountain West has 4 NCAA caliber teams this year. They won't all get into the tournament. They'll get 3. Somebody from this quartet of Air Force, BYU, UNLV, and San Diego State isn't going to get to the Mountain West tournament. Had they all been playing in this bracket buster Saturday and gone and gotten wins against teams from other leagues, it may have fortified their position to get 4 teams in. Instead, that extra spot's liable to go to somebody who establishes something coming out of this bracket buster weekend.
That's a total airball by the Mountain West front office because the WAC gets involved every year. Why does the Mountain West not get involved? It's been ridiculous. Maybe not the first year, but now when you see how big it has become and how it can really help out your teams, you've made a huge mistake.
Oh, and guess which team would have been certainly featured in one of the major bracket buster games year after year? UNLV, because of their name.
Sure.
UNLV probably be hosting somebody like a Southern Illinois or Creighton or one of the big name teams from one of the other bigger mid-major conferences, and it would be a game that got a lot of national attention. And instead, the Mountain West just played each other this Saturday, and that's not very good.
Before we get off this game, too, and another thing that makes it such a great is the matchups of the strengths of each team. As you mentioned, Scott, I mean, basically, Butler, they've got some pretty nice big men inside, but they're a perimeter team. And as you said, Southern Illinois defends the 3 very well, so you take that away from them. On the other hand, I saw something the other day, 336 Division I teams, okay? Only one averages less than 10 turnovers per game, and guess who that is? It's Butler. What I mean, talk about taking care of the ball, and of course that's very key when you're taking
they got on their shoulder right now. I like what they're doing because they did beat Gonzaga early. You mentioned some of the teams they beat early, and they're not getting credit for those right now because Gonzaga's having a down year, relatively speaking. Purdue, as well as they've been playing, is not getting any ink or notice.
I wasn't meaning to say it was beating a North Carolina, but still.
No, but still,
big,
and so it's like all of a sudden those big wins for Butler have been swept under the carpet, and now they are in the marquee matchup of the weekend.
Notre Dame, Tennessee. It is.
I'll give an opinion on the game for the show on the under. I just don't see a lot of points being scored. This could be a 50-46 type of game.
It'll be interesting to see what the lines maker comes up.
Well,
Butler plays good defense too.
I've always thought if I lived in a town,
it's going to be low total.
If
you
I
better
lived in a
believe it
town
will.
where the scores were always 46-44, I'd never go to one of their games.
Oh.
But you know what? Southern Illinois plays it so well, I'd be there every night. I mean, that's how good it is. It's exciting.
It's weird, but they're fast-moving, exciting games.
Exactly. They're
There's
athletes.
just not a lot of points.
Yep.
There's a few teams like Air Force. You know, they play a system that just doesn't make for high-scoring games, but you can't tell me they're not an exciting team to watch. They really are.
At least Air Force can shoot. That's the only drawback against Southern Illinois. They don't have any shooters.
Yeah, they have to repaint the rim after almost every game. And a lot of paint flying off that baby. All right, here's another game we're going to look at momentarily. You talk about a team that's flying under the radar right now. These guys are pretty good. We'll find out how good Austin Peay out of the Ohio Valley Conference is, because they have to go in and play a MAC team on the road. They'll be going to Akron. We'll take a look at that game when Proline continues.
Coming up, Austin Peay and Akron, but first we'll hear from Smokin' Dave Koken, who won his 2007 College Basketball Game of the Year last week and has a 5-play Bracket Buster special this week, which includes a password for his Bracket Buster Game of the Year absolutely free.
Well, here's where I get to sit here and tell you how good things were last Saturday, and they were. I had my College Basketball Game of the Year. This one was one I just absolutely loved. This game, San Diego State. I know the Mountain West about as well as any league, I guess, and watching these teams play, you really have a good feel for the ebbs and flows of these squads. And San Diego State, going into last Saturday's game with Colorado State, 5 straight opponents they had held under 40% field goal shooting. They stopped reading their press clippings and stopped playing 1-on-5 and really started operating as a team the last few weeks. And they made him an underdog against a really mediocre Colorado State squad that falls apart every February like clockwork. This was an easy play, and San Diego State just blows them out in the second half. So College Game of the Year was a big winner. And that's been the story on these Game of the Year selections that I've had lately. Conference Game of the Year releases have been on a big roll. I had Fairfield, an underdog on Sunday in the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference. They go wire to wire and win their game outright. My dog of the week last week was an 8.5, 9-point dog, New Orleans. They went outright in their game. I had my Mountain West Game of the Year, not the Conference Game of the Year, happened to be out of the Mountain West, but my Mountain West Game of the Year also was last week. That was a pretty easy winner. So it's just been one after another. And now we come to something that I've got a good history in. These Bracket Busters, I've done well with these. It's kind of like mini tournaments as far as being able to use my conference power ratings to the best possible advantage. And I think I'm going to have another really good day. I've got a lot of games that I like, and I'm putting 5 of them at my Solid Gold Club right now. 5 Bracket Buster selections, and it's only $25 for all 5 games. You can get those right online right now. Just go to the selections area and get my Solid Gold Club package, or you can call 1-800 or check that 1-900-835-9898. It's just $25 for all 5 games. Plus, you're going to get the password that will get you my Bracket Buster Game of the Year at no cost whatsoever. That's a pretty nice free bonus. So make sure and take advantage and get set for a big day. We've been rolling lately. I think it's going to stay that way today. We got a nice matchup here. Austin Peay doing a real good job in the Ohio Valley Conference this year, and they go into MAC country to face the Akron Zips, one of the better teams out of the MAC. Probably a pretty good-sized number here because the Ohio Valley does not have a good conference RPI, and in fact, it's not a very good conference. But Austin Peay they're an athletic team. I've seen them play a few games. Gotta love ESPNU, by the way, because now I really get to see all these teams play from some of the smaller conferences, and you just get more insight from seeing a team play instead of just reading about them in their local newspapers. That's still something you gotta do because you get great information, but it's always nice to see them play. Austin Peay is not bad at all. Difficult journey, though, Scott.
I think so. And if you look at we talked about Austin Peay a good 3 or 4 weeks ago. In fact, we gave out 2 teams that have done quite well that we said are teams to watch over the next few weeks. That was Southern Illinois and Austin Peay. And Austin Peay's 12-3 against the spread in Ohio Valley play. But when they stepped out of that conference earlier this season, they really got knocked around, including, in fact, they allowed about 75 points per game outside of the conference. I remember they had an 80-35 loss outside of the conference. They got whacked by Illinois. And I got to tell you that there's not that much separation this year between Akron and Illinois. I have, out of 336 college basketball teams, the rankings I use have the Akron Zips ranked in the mid-60s. They've got Austin Peay ranked about 150th. That's about a 9-point difference on this court. So you already see that. I really think that Akron's just too strong for this team, and I think they're going to knock this team off probably by a good 14 to 15 points. Once the Governors get back into Ohio Valley play, they become a play-on team once again. But going outside of the conference against the Max Best is going to be kind of tough.
One of the worries that I would have with the dog here is the fact that, let's face it, there's only one way for an Ohio Valley team to play its way in the NCAA tournament. They have to win their conference tournament. Akron or teams of that ilk from the bigger mid-major conferences, they may be on the bubble. It's a game Akron absolutely needs to win. I mean, they cannot possibly.
It's not a great win for them, but it'd be a terrible loss.
That's exactly right. And sometimes that can be the biggest key in this game. And that's where you have to look at what it means to teams from different conferences. Austin Peay's big games are in their own conference right now. I mean, I think they're a pretty good team, and it could actually be a live dog against somebody. I think they've come together much more as a team now than they were earlier in the season when they were getting
whacked.
Yeah. But still, this, and I know it would be very nice for them to go in and win at Akron. It would be a feather in their cap. But to me, the most important factor in this game is Akron not getting a loss.
There's some similarities. It's interesting. The first game we were talking about, Butler. This is a team that wasn't expected to do that well this year for one big reason. Brandon Polk, the player of the year in that conference, graduated, took his 17, 18 points a game, a real good rebounder, pretty good defensive player. This team, Austin Peay, they lost 3 starters, and 2 of them were first and second team Ohio Valley all-stars, first and second leading scorers, and yet they come up with a great year, a surprising year for them. But I tell you, they are incredibly small, even for the Ohio. I mean, they go 6'5", 6'5", 6'5" across the front line, and I just don't think they can play with these guys. They're athletic enough; they're not going to get hurt in that respect. But I think that
I'll be fair in that because of the losses they had was one of the reasons they struggled. I mean, I don't think matching up against Illinois right now would be a 45-point loss.
Absolutely
they would lose the game, but not by 45. But the bottom line is, I really do believe that, even though they lost those guys, they struggled in the early going. Here's what scares me about playing the favorite, the Akron Zips here. I kind of lost my train of thought for a second. What scares me about this, as you just mentioned, it is more important for them not to lose this game.
Yep.
And when that happens, teams are thinking about that. Doesn't mean they're going to lose the game, but a lot of times you'll see, let's say, a 9-point spread. Team has to win the game. They can't afford to lose it. They win by 5 or 6. They do enough to get the game.
I think the coach causes that more than the players.
So do I.
Even.
And I think that's why you got to be real careful about laying a decent-sized spot with the Zips, which is probably what this is going to be, because they're looking at this game of we've got to get out of here with a W. No matter what it takes, doesn't matter if it's 1 point or 20, we got to win. And you could very well see a 6-point win.
All right. Old Dominion. The Monarchs. Boy, I'll tell you what. The Colonial Athletic Association is having a really good year. And Old Dominion has a big challenge ahead of them as they head into a very tough home court to play Toledo. We're going to come back and look at that game when Proline continues.
Next up, Old Dominion takes on Toledo, but first we'll hear from Scott Spreitzer, who had another winning Saturday last week, including his mismatch game of the year with Kansas State, and has a guaranteed trifecta this Saturday featuring his KO game of the year.
Welcome back to Proline, everybody. More Bracket Buster talk coming up in a bit. And if you want to bust the book, all you have to do is call Smash Mouth Sports. What a heck of a run we've been on now for almost 4 weeks. Well over 200 stars is what we've produced for our clients in college basketball over the past 3+ weeks. We had another Game of the Year winner last Saturday with Kansas State. Our mismatch Game of the Year, it was just that as they whipped Colorado. That put us on a 6-0 college basketball Game of the Year run through last Saturday. It's been outstanding. We swept the board with our high-end plays. We hit our main event, our 25-star insider, the mismatch Game of the Year. That was part of a big 12-4 run. Now this week, I've got a huge package going again. It's a 3-play trifecta in college basketball that includes a pair of games of the month. We're on a 16-7 run with those, and my one and only 2007 KO Game of the Year. All 3 plays, only $25, and you must win all 3, or you will receive the rest of the regular season free. Get them all right now, online or at 1-900-868-3350, just $25. 1-900-868-3350.
Can I interrupt for a second? You are on a tremendous run in college hoops, but we're on the internet now, and the guidelines are a little more lenient, And when I heard you say, I was thinking of adjectives. When you said a heck of a run, were you thinking of anything else that you could have used besides heck?
I was thinking USA Network.
No.
Anyway, let's talk about Old Dom.
Yeah,
I'll let you guys banter. Old Dom and Toledo.
Old Dominion is. I lost a pretty good sized play against them. Probably about 3 weeks ago, I guess it was 2 or 3 weeks ago. I took George Mason at home. I believe it was 2 weeks ago Saturday. I took George Mason minus 3.5 against Old Dominion. And George Mason led the entire game until the final shot of regulation. Old Dominion hits a 3 to send it to overtime, and then Old Dominion outscored George Mason 10-0, nothing in the overtime, and so that was a loser for me. But the thing that really impressed me about Old Dominion in this game, these guys are, and I used this word in a write-up I had. I had a free play on Old Dominion at our website earlier this week against Hofstra. And one of the words I used in the write-up was relentless. And that's exactly what they are. This team just goes at you from the first minute till the 40th minute. They never stop. They will kill you on the inside if you're not ready to go out there and really mix it up. They're a rough, physical basketball team. And the Colonial Athletic Association, I think even more so than the Horizon, is this year's kind of under-the-radar, really good conference. It's weird how that's happened, too, because George Mason made the Final Four run last year, and I thought this league would get more attention than it has. It hasn't. And you've got Hofstra and Drexel and Old Dominion and Virginia Commonwealth. And some decent teams in the middle, too. George Mason is in the middle of the pack in that conference. Towson's done a good job this year in the middle of the pack. This conference is loaded. And I think they're the conference right now with a chip on its shoulder going into this bracket buster weekend. And I believe Old Dominion has a good chance to go into a tough home court. I mean, Toledo is not an easy place to play. I think they're just better than Toledo, and I think they're going to out-physical Toledo and expect them to win this basketball game. We'll have to see what the number is to determine as to whether it'll actually be a play for me or not, because I want as much value as I can get in a number. But Old Dominion is flat out good, and I think they're going to win their bracket buster game.
I think 4 or 5 points minimum you're going to get here, maybe even more. It'll be interesting to see. Depending on
I don't think you get anywhere near that.
You don't think so?
No.
Well, maybe it's wishful thinking on my part because I like to back the Monarchs myself. You talk about two teams that are on a roll. Both of them struggled, especially Toledo early in the year. It was kind of a surprise, too, because they had almost everybody back from last year, but they just didn't play well initially. Yeah, well, that's true.
You get stuck playing everything away from home.
10-2 straight up and against the spread their last 12 games for this MAC squad, and even better for Old Dominion. They're also 10-2 straight up, 11-1 against the spread. I think they've captured 9 straight spread wins. So this team is just on a tremendous roll right now. As you mentioned, though, Dave, the MAC doesn't have a lot of big people this year. I mean, they're really down size-wise, and that hasn't hurt Toledo.
I think the MAC's down talent-wise.
Yeah, in talent overall, I think you're right. It isn't as good as it was in past seasons, and that could be critical against this Monarch team. Arnaud Dahi, big man. He's only 6'7", but he goes about 230 or 240. Very strong, very physical. I think he has his way with his team, and as you said, they could really dominate him there. And if that's the case, unless Toledo shoots lights out, I don't see why it shouldn't be a close contest and with a chance for the visitor to even win it outright. And we hadn't mentioned this, but if you look over the last 2 years, the road teams in these bracket buster games are winning at a clip of like about 63-64%, so they've done very well. So.
Well, I part of that may be, just as a general thing, teams, the home teams in the middle of the fans, they're more geared up for teams that they know, teams in their own conference that they've grown to hate over the years. The rivalries. It's part of the fun of conference play in college basketball. Here comes some team from someplace else, and the animosity just isn't there. Plus, I think the road teams often look at this as, we have to go improve ourselves here. And I think that's part of the reason that the road teams have actually done well over the years. And by and large, that's the first place you want to look in these bracket buster games. We've got one more game to talk about. It's Ohio University and New Mexico State from beautiful Las Cruces, New Mexico, when we continue.
Next, Ohio is on the road to New Mexico State, but first a reminder that world champion handicapper Jim Feist is making available all of his college basketball executive service plays from now until the national championship game for just $99 when you call toll-free to 1-877-JIM Feist. That's 1-877-546-3347. Plus, when you call on Saturday, get a free TV parlay between UConn and Syracuse, as well as Memphis and Gonzaga.
Make sure and take advantage of another great offer from world champion handicapper Jim Feist. The number's on the screen. Give it a call. Get his picks online, and get yourself to the winner's circle this weekend. Jim's got some really good stuff. We have got a good game to talk about as well. The Bobcats of Ohio University heading to one of the garden spots of America, Las Cruces, New Mexico. Not so
sure
fun.
somebody has a garden.
Well, probably. That's a little inside in a way, because that's what we used to always call it here in Las Vegas. So when UNLV and New Mexico State played in the same conference, that was the trip nobody looked forward to. Difficult trip, and they had a tough program down there too.
Yes, they did.
Neil McCarthy had a lot of winning teams down there. This program had completely fallen way off the map. And what Reggie Theus has done there in less than 2 seasons, absolutely remarkable for the former UNLV star, and of course NBA star as well. He's done a great job with this program. And once again, I think visitors are starting to find out why Las Cruces is not one of the most pleasant trips to make in college basketball. And Ohio University's got a difficult assignment here.
They do. This isn't a real good match for me. The line will make a decision for me on this one too. I probably would be shading right now the home team if I don't have to lay too many points. You have to admit, this Ohio U team, a nice solid ball club, but I mean they're probably what, the 4th, 5th best team in the MAC, maybe at best.
They've been erratic this year.
They have up and down, and they're up against a team that really, other than Nevada, I think you can realistically say this is the best team in that conference. So. Other than Reno,
so there's no question.
Yeah, so this is a pretty tough matchup. Theus, like you said, he's just done a spectacular job. They've won 17 straight games at home. This is a tough place to visit for people.
They're awesome as a cover. They're at home. I mean,
Yes.
they win their games by an average score of 86-73, which shows that the former member of the Hardway 8 is getting it done by picking them up and putting them down on the hardwood. I mean, these guys are really flying out there right now. Reggie Theus, who was not considered for the UNLV job a few years ago because he didn't have a degree, is really suffering from not having that degree as head coach of New Mexico State. But by the way, I am satisfied with Lon Kruger being here.
Absolutely.
But I just wanted to take a little dig at the UNLV administration for not giving Reggie Theus a serious look. This team's good. They're 10-3 straight up, 6-2 against the spread. In non-conference action also, they've been doing it right from the start this year. Huge win going onto the islands last week in Hawaii and stealing a win, 71-68, in a very tough place to play. I want to get these numbers right. I think the over is the play in this game, by the way, guys. Ohio U will run with you if you give them a chance, and that's what New Mexico State wants to have happen. Both teams allow over 42% to their opponents from behind the arc. Ohio State gives up about 45% on the road behind the arc. New Mexico State, as I just mentioned, gives up in the mid-40s. At home against three-pointers. I mean, that's pretty bad. Ohio connects on 49% of their field goal attempts. New Mexico State at home, 50% from the floor. I mean, and you got two teams who are going to run up and down the court. So I don't know if this is Duquesne type of overs. I don't know if you're going to see 200 points in this one, but I do think you're going to see a high-scoring game here.
Yeah, it's funny, too, in a sense, because if you had told me how good New Mexico State was going to be again this year, I would have said, well, they're doing it with defense, I guess. Because Reggie Theus, people forget, he was the defensive stopper on that great UNLV Final Four team of the late 70s, the Hardway 8. He was the guy who was most noted for defense and was drafted into the NBA as a defensive player. Of course, he became a pretty good all-around player. He's got a very athletic team. He's brought in some kids who may have been overlooked by other programs, and they're playing hard for him, and they're establishing themselves. I don't think he's going to be at New Mexico State very long.
It's going to be tough to keep him there. With this resume
let's face it, he is a rising star in the coaching industry. No question about that. I think he's going to be offered by the end of this season one of the big jobs that opens up in college basketball, and he's got the resume already coming out of Patino, the Patino branch or tree, if you want to call it that, which is producing some very good coaches. Donovan doing a pretty good job down in Florida, and the fact that Reggie Theus, because of his name, is going to be able to recruit
Let me jump in there for just a second. I mean, here's what you got on the sheet if you're going to hire Reggie Theus at that next level. You got a guy who had an extended career in the NBA and did some things in the NBA. He wasn't sitting on the bench.
No.
A guy who had a fantastic college career under another great teacher in Jerry Tarkanian. He's good looking. He has a presence about him. And he, bottom line, wins basketball games like he's done with this New Mexico State team. As you mentioned, was at the bottom, as far down as probably they could go. And now they're built back up into a team that has a great shot at making the big dance. He's got a huge resume that he's building right now.
And also, I think it's going to, unlike a lot of guys who were stars, and he was a star in the NBA.
Sure.
A lot of guys who were at that level might not settle for sitting next to somebody on the bench as an assistant and then taking over a program that's completely blown apart in a very remote part of the country. And yet he's done that. And he's obviously committed himself to this job in terms of what he's accomplished in 2 years. If he's back in Las Cruces, I actually think if he's back in Las Cruces next year, I'll be surprised because I think he's ready
That soon, huh?
Yeah,
and
I
I'll
think
tell
he's
you,
ready
we
to
mentioned
step
all
up
the
and
things he
take
did in
a
the NBA. Plus, he's one of the few guys you could say maybe could outdress Walt Frazier.
Oh, yeah.
The guy always historically perfect, you know. So another big advantage, but all kind of.
Oh, he's going to charm some moms when he walks into the living room with some young prospects. There's no doubt about that.
All right, so it's Ohio and New Mexico State. I agree with Scott, by the way. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game, and I think that maybe the best value in this contest is to play the over. We have our best bets still to come on this edition of Proline, so there's no reason to get off the website just yet. In fact, you should stay on the website all the time, 24/7. Even when you're sleeping, leave it on there just in case something happens.
Well, winners by osmosis.
Yeah, there you go. We'll be right back.
Coming up next are Proline Best Bets, the biggest selection from today's show.
For my best bet, we're going to use the last game we talked about, the New Mexico State contest against Ohio U. We're going to play it over. I agree with the fellas here, up and down the court here, and if they just shoot close to their percentages, this game's going to go flying over the total. And this weekend, it's all free. My personal service day, you're going to get all of my NBA and my college basketball hardwood court plays, all of them free, and of course that includes my Bracket Buster Game of the Year. All on the house at 1-800-531-7069.
Well, we're going to stick with that total that we talked about, Ohio and New Mexico State to go over the total. If you want to just keep filling up that wallet, building that bankroll, then all you got to do is call Smash Mouth Sports. We have been on an absolute tear in conference play. As we mentioned earlier, over 200 stars of profit over the past 3+ weeks. We've cashed 6 of our last 7 Proline packages. We're going to do it again this week. A 3-0 guaranteed package that includes 2 games of the month and my KO Game of the Year for 2007. All 3 plays must win or the rest of the regular season will be free. Get them all right now along with the guarantee. 1-900-868-3350, just $25, or right here at jimfeist.com.
Well, I'll go with a side. I said that I thought Old Dominion would beat Toledo, so obviously I like Old Dominion in that game, and I'll make them this week's best bet. Easy winner again last week on my Proline best bet, by the way. And, of course, it's been real good with these games of the year, including the big game of the year, the college basketball game of the year last week with San Diego State. I've got a 5-game package. I really think I've got a good shot to go 5-0 with these games, and they're all bracket buster matchups. You got all 5 games for $25. 1-900-835-9898 is the phone number, or you can just keep it right here at the website and get my solid gold package. You'll also get a password that will get you my best bracket buster play, my bracket buster game of the year. That will be yours as a free bonus. Lots of great packages to talk about, and we think we're all going to have outstanding weekends. I don't see why not. We're all going really well right now, and hopefully we can maintain it through what should be an exciting weekend of college basketball, and then sit back on Sunday and watch the NBA All-Star Game. For Scott Spreitzer and Glenn McGrew, I'm Dave Koken. For Jim Feist as well, and for all the guys behind the scenes, I want to thank them. Thank you for watching. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for watching us this week, and be sure to catch Proline on the web next weekend, available Friday nights for more great insight.